Hello, how are you? I'm Chief Dean Rondeau with the Wolfeboro Police Department, and to my left is my Executive Officer, Captain Mark Livy, and welcome back to another segment of Coffee and Connections with the Chief. And we're here now in the month of March. The weather is getting better. Spring is on the way. In fact, spring is on my birthday, March 21st, right? And so that's awesome. I know we're all looking forward to that. Spring, I mean, not my birthday. Okay, I'm looking forward to my birthday. Having said that, as we're into the month of March, we got the town vote coming up on 12 March. The polls, I believe, open at 7:30, and they stay open until approximately 8 p.m. 2,000 hours for all you military folks out there. So 2,000 hours for all you military folks out there. So get out there and vote. Exercise your constitutional right to do that. That's a wonderful thing. I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about the budget that we've developed. So I would like and I would hope that you support the town's operating budget. A lot of hard work went into that budget, and I just want to talk a little bit about that budget process. So the way that it essentially works, and I'll talk specifically to the police department, but you get the general idea. The way that it works is that I sit down with my executive officer, and this year, different from every other year, we sat down also with a Board of Selectmen member and a Budget Committee member, and in joint sessions, plural, more than one, we, if you will, cussed and discussed the police department budget, and we looked at a lot of numbers, and we looked at a lot of theory, and we looked at a lot of philosophy, and we looked at a lot of issues that we had to deal with, and we tortured the numbers, and we tortured the requests that we were asking for, and that budget then got put forward to the police commission, and then the same process happened with the police commission. We discussed the budget, and we tortured the numbers some more, and some things fell out, and some things got put in based off of all that, and that's exactly what you want to have happen, right? You want give and take. You want things to fall out. You want things to get put back in based off of what the demonstrated needs are, right? And that's an important term, our demonstrated needs. And then from there, the budget went before the town manager, and the town manager basically gave a review, if you will, a sanity check. And then from there, the budget then went before the Board of Selectmen. And then the Board of Selectmen tortured the numbers as a group even more, and some things fell out. And then from there, the budget, the police department budget, and that's all three budgets, by the way. That's the department's budget, that is the Wolfeboro Central Dispatch budget, and animal control budget. Then all went before the budget committee. And we have, 3 meetings with the budget committee over this year's police department. So, and these are long meetings, folks. These are, 3 or 4 hour meetings, where all the members of the budget committee weigh in on the police department budget. And that is a good process. This is a good process. And some things fell out. And some things got put back in. And again, that's exactly what you want to have happen. And the budget committee really did a deep dive into our budget. And I know for a fact that they do a deep dive into every budget, every department budget, and they go through with a very fine-tooth comb, and they really make the department heads justify the individual budgets and what they're, and there are no sacred cows. Everything is looked at very carefully with a fine-tooth comb. These meetings, by the way, are open to the public. The public is more than welcome to attend. At the end of the day, the budget is put forth along with warrant articles, and that becomes the town's operating budget. So what am I really saying to you? I'm saying that there's been a lot of oversight and a lot of very good discussion that has gone into the development of the budget, and that a lot of the requests and the numbers and the process has been through a very detailed vetting process where all the requests have been justified. And that is the reason why I would hope that you would support the town's operating budget. And more importantly, this is the reason I would want the folks to support the police department budget and the police union contract. And that's something that I want to talk about next. This year on the budget, and I just don't know what article it is. Do you know off the top of your head, Captain? But you'll see the police union contract. Now, the captain and I are not in the police union, nor are we part of the town's union negotiating team. We're not. We don't negotiate for the union. We don't negotiate for the town. We're left out of that. But I would say that, again, a lot of hard work on both sides has gone into the development of the police union contract. And I think it's good. I think it's a good contract. Now, it is lengthy, right? It's a 4-year contract. And you're going to see on the ballot where I believe it was 3 of the Budget Committee members did not agree with the police union contract. But I think they didn't agree with it from the simple standpoint that it was indeed a 4-year contract. And they felt that may be a bit too long. Would that be your recollection, Captain?
That's exactly right.
So, and I get that, I understand that, but 4 of the members did agree with it, as did all of the Board of Selectmen and all of the police commissioners. So I think that's very important. So you have 3 separate town boards, elected officials, taking a look at this with a fine-tooth comb and essentially agreeing with it and passing it forward on to the voters for your final decision. I would hope that you would support it. I would tell you that when you have a long contract, it can be good, and because things move very, very smoothly, and there is a cost savings when you don't have to negotiate a contract year after year after year. There's a huge cost savings in there for the town. Why? Well, because you don't have to take time, and you don't have to interrupt operations, and you don't have to pay for labor attorneys, and you don't have to tie up some key leaders within the town where they're tied up on these negotiations, where they're not doing whatever it is else they should be doing. So anybody in business will tell you that time is money, and when you can get these contracts and put them in place, there is a cost savings. And now, one thing that did not come up, but one thing I do want to mention about the police union contract, that there are provisions in there to reopen up negotiations for specific items if need be. So whereas I think
to open up just for the to look at the health insurance and all that again, that's really the only thing they can open it up for. But that's a good clause to have, especially when you have a 4-year contract.
So one of the things that I think became a point of discussion was that it was 4 years, and 4 years is a long time, and I agree with that. 4 years is a long time. But there is a provision in there to open it up for health insurance negotiations and so forth. So I think that's good. So there is some mechanism to open up negotiations again. So again, I would hope that the town folk support the police union contract. I would hope that you would support the town's operating budget in general, because when and if we have to go into a default budget, it is really disastrous for the town. The reason being is costs go up year after year after year. And when you're forced to operate a town on the previous year's budget, there's a lot of things that you simply cannot do. It does impact services, and there's just simply no other way around it. Health insurance costs, for example, go up. There are other costs associated with the running of the town that go up, and it's difficult to pay for those services when you don't have funding for it. The town's budget is really quite finely figured, almost right down to the penny. So I would support the I would support the town's operating budget. I think it's important to support that because it has been looked at quite extensively by all of our elected representatives. They've put an awful lot of time into review of the budget, and I just think it's very important. So there's been a lot of eyes that have looked at this, and I think that's a good thing. The last thing I want to talk about is the warrant article for the police that deals with the police special detail fund. So we're asking to spend some money out of the police special detail revolving account, which was set up in 2006, to purchase outright an upfitted police vehicle, be a Ford Explorer. And that warrant article has zero impact on the tax base, and that's really a key concept to keep in mind. That has zero impact on the tax base. That's money that has that is essentially already there, and we simply just need the town's permission to spend that money, and that's why we're doing our due diligence, asking the town if we can have the permission to spend money out of that fund to purchase this cruiser. Last year, I lost 2 cruisers due to significant rust and safety issues. This year, I'm most likely going to lose another 2 police vehicles. So I really need to start replacing these vehicles. Vehicles are essentially our lifeblood. It's how we get to calls for service. It's how we respond to emergencies. I can't get my staff from point A to point B without police vehicles. So having a replacement vehicle for the 4 that I'm losing, either the 2 I've already lost or the 2 I'm about to lose, is really important. And again, it's zero impact on the tax base. The money's already there. And then this is an important concept, and I just want to talk about it briefly with this. Where we have money in that account, and now I'm going to talk about the concept of value. As we begin to go into an inflationary period in our nation's history, money, if not spent, will lose value, right? And this is called inflation, right? This is what the whole idea of inflation is, right? Money is worth less as the inflationary index increases. So what am I really trying to say is, like, if we have, say, $100 and we hang on to that $100 and we start to move into an inflationary period of time, pretty soon $100 can't buy $100 worth of product or services. Maybe it can only buy $97 or $95 or $90, and as the inflationary index continues to increase, the money becomes the money is worth less and less and less, right? And if you're paying attention to what's going on down in Venezuela, you'll see that, right? Okay, that's the whole concept of what's going on in Venezuela, where it takes, thousands and thousands and thousands of lira now to purchase a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk, all right? That's the concept of inflation. The money essentially becomes worthless, all right? So now understanding that concept of value, it's better to spend the money now where it's worth more than later as we start to move into an inflationary cycle. And that's simply my last, my last point is that we'll get more bang for our buck, no pun intended, if we buy now and the voters approve that. Again, zero impact on the tax base. The money's already sitting there. It's sitting in the kitty, and we just need to spend it. And it's not earning any interest. It sits there in a pot. It earns zero interest, so it's not like it's earning any money. It's not like we can invest it. We just simply can't do that. So it's better to spend it now on a capital item than it is to try and hang on to the money in hopes that the money will somehow magically become worth more, because that's just not the way it's going to work. Investment in capital items is always a cost-saving measure. It's always a cost-saving measure rather than to lease or to purchase on a loan. So having said that, now I'm going to turn it over to my captain for an operational update, and thank you very much.
So a few things. We were trying to have the K-9 officer, the sergeant, Michael Strock, who was appointed in January here with Riggs, so we all could see him, see the dog. But he's actually at training right now for supervisor training, as he's been promoted in January, as we mentioned before, and getting all the necessary training to get him up to par and understand the position that he's in. So hopefully next month we can get him here, get Riggs here in front of you, maybe do something on the show so you can see what actually he does out in the field, which would be very interesting to everyone out in the public. Other things that are going on, we actually have put on our Facebook, if you haven't seen it, a job opening for a police officer. The deadline for that is March 12th, so check out our Facebook page. You can see that. All resumes will come over to my email, which is on the Facebook page and on our web page, if you need that. In dispatch, the big thing is there. So we had an opening for a part-time position. We actually gave a conditional offer to somebody. They're going through the background right now. So hopefully that might take, it could take like 3 to 4 weeks before the background gets finished, and then he'll be hopefully out and doing some FTOing in dispatch. So you might be able to hear him there, and then hopefully we can get him here so you guys can see who you're actually talking to, which is a very comforting sometimes in that circumstance. Other things that are going on, we all know our grants are out there from highway safety, our DWIs, click at a ticket's going to be coming up here. Speed grants are going to be out there. Yeah, DWI. So, but one thing I do want to mention, as we're getting into March, the snow is still coming down, possibility of being around, and if we do have snowfall, please, 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 clear off your car. It really only takes, maybe 2-3 minutes to clear off your car, but you can save actually lives if you think about it. That ice can actually come off your car and go into another car, into a windshield, and come through. It's amazing what the ice can do when it's built up like that and it comes flying off a vehicle. So please take the time, the 2 minutes, clear off your car so you actually can see and the other vehicles that are around you. So it's safety for you, the operator of the vehicle, and the safety of the other vehicles that are driving on the roadway with you. And one other thing that we mentioned in our February commissioners meeting is that Ron Goodgame is not going out for re-election. So he's done 10 years? Over 10 years?
10 years.
Yeah,
Maybe a little over 10 years.
Little over 10 years of service with as a police commissioner. So I've really worked with him really close to the last 2 years in my position. And I know the chief has worked with him for pretty much the entire time that he's been a commissioner. I just want to wish him well. It's been a pleasure working with him in different capacities as an officer and as the captain of the department. And I bet the chief has the same saying too. But I do want to wish him well, and it's been a pleasure working with you, Ron, as the police commissioner. And we look forward for the next 3 that I believe there's 3 of them that are going out for it for the March 12th election. So good luck to them, and we'll be looking forward to that. So other than that, I don't have too much more to really go on with the operational part, except for those applications. If you know somebody, please get it in. March 12th is going to be the deadline for that. And I'll give it back to the chief.
Yes, I echo the sentiments expressed by the executive officer. Ron Goodgame is a gentleman and a scholar. Of course, he's an attorney. He's a former police officer from years ago in the state of California. And so he's definitely a great American, and I've really enjoyed working with him. He's a very bright man. He has a lot of great ideas. And we've really enjoyed working with him over the last 10 years. He's brought a lot of insights to the police department. He's certainly shaped the way we do community policing and problem-oriented policing solutions. So we're always very appreciative to Commissioner Goodgame for his civic duty and his civic mindedness, and it has been a real pleasure working with him. He's certainly done a lot of critical thinking and deep thinking on the part of the police department and the strategic vision and where we want to go, and that's exactly what we really expect from our police commissioners. You know, we're really looking for that deep thinking and where do we want to be in 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years, so forth. And Ron has certainly done that. So my hat's off to you, sir, and it's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you so much. One last thing I want to talk about a little is press releases and how we do this, and people are just, well, why is he bringing this up? So earlier last month, we had a change of policy in the Wolfeboro Police Department where we were now putting our arrests, if you will, or the arrest blotter, if you will, for those of you that go way back to the 60s and 70s, as it is affectionately referred to as, on our Facebook page. And I think there was a lot of pushback from the citizenry. They didn't understand it. There was no explanation to it. And I understand that. I get that. And that was my bad. Mea culpa. Hold that thought, because I'm going to get back to it. The First Amendment, the freedom of the press and freedom of speech is very, very important, right? It's the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights. In the original 10 Bill of Rights, it's number 1. Okay, and so I think you have to pay attention to that. Okay, and in keeping with that, under New Hampshire law 91A, right, the right to know law gives the media almost unfettered access to things like arrest reports and arrests and things like this, right? Governmental operation, right? It speaks to that in great detail. So when we look at this intuitively, you have the First Amendment, the federal Constitution, that is speaking specifically about the freedom of the press and unfettered access by the press into what the government is doing and how it's doing it. And then in 91A, under New Hampshire state law and within the New Hampshire state Constitution, very similar language, right? It talks about the freedom of the press and the public's right to know, right? That's what 91A is, called the right to know law. And then we have this other thing that's in the federal Constitution and also in the New Hampshire state Constitution. It's called the writ of habeas corpus. All right, and what is habeas corpus? It's Latin for produce the body, right? And so what does that really mean? That means that when a citizen is arrested, that the police department is required, right? The police, law enforcement, the government is required to show the body before the courts, and there's a very strict timeline on when that happens. And that's because we live essentially in a constitutional republic, right? We don't live in a totalitarian regime. We don't live under a dictatorship. The police don't show up at midnight and arrest somebody, never to be seen again. That's what happens in Iran or North Korea or Russia or some other country that is not a constitutional republic. I see connective tissue, if you will, for lack of a better term, between the First Amendment and habeas corpus, and within the state of New Hampshire's Constitution, under 91A, the right to know law. So there's connective tissue there between the writ of habeas corpus and 91A, and I think that is very, very important, because this isn't North Korea, it's not Iran, and it's not Russia. We don't arrest people never to be seen again. And an arrest, I think, is a very serious matter. When we take a citizen off the streets for some reason, for some violation of law, I firmly believe that the public has a right to know. I believe in that. I think that's important. It's important to our constitutional republic. It is a cornerstone upon which our democratic institutions are founded. And that's why we issue press releases. That's why we put this information out, because there's an obligation that the police department has, that the government has, to explain to our citizens and to explain to society why a member of the citizenry, a member of the community, has been taken from them for either a short or long period of time, has been absented from their presence and has been in the hands of government. I think that's hugely important. It is so important to a democracy. It is so important to a constitutional republic. This is a very, very important concept. No, it is not meant to sham, whatever that word means, or to shame anybody. That's not the purpose behind this. The purpose behind this is simply to explain what government did. It is meant to explain what happened, why a person was removed from society's presence, and then is to give information as to when and where they will appear before a judge to answer a complaint, also called an arraignment. So these are important principles contained within our Constitution. I believe in following the Constitution, and to that end, I believe in announcing when we've made an arrest. So the reason that we do this is to explain to the public why somebody has been removed, and it is so critically important to how we function. It's contained within the Constitution, and it's something that I believe fully in. And what you'll be seeing for our news and media outlets and for the general public is all of our arrests, all of our press releases now being put onto our Facebook page with the brief explanation and with a format that's easy to follow, where the media can go right to our Facebook page and download the press release along with the photos as to whatever the incident or arrest is. And it just facilitates proper administration. It facilitates our compliance with the Right to Know Law 91A. It facilitates our compliance with the First Amendment and the Freedom of Information Act, and I think it's hugely important. So you're going to be seeing that here. If you haven't already noticed it, it is going to be on our Facebook page, and that is where you will go to get the information. We are also going to release each and every individual arrest, as we always do, to the media. Now, I don't tell the media what to publish. They don't work for me. I don't control them. They may write a story, they may not. But the important thing is that we're sending the information out. All right, I believe in that. It's completely up to them as to what they want to publish and what they don't want to publish. They don't work for me. I don't control them. They certainly write whatever stories they want to write. I just simply give them the information. What they do with it is completely up to them. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that and point that out. So those are some changes that you'll see. So again, when you start seeing these arrests on our Facebook page, they're not meant to embarrass anybody or to shame anybody. That's not why we do it. And if that's your feeling, then that's your feeling, and there's nothing I can do about that. But I would encourage you to look at the First Amendment, and I would encourage you to look at New Hampshire's Right to Know law and delve more into this, and then talk to some media representatives and some media outlets and see what they say, get their take on it. And I think they'll tell you that, as I have been in the past, sued for not releasing information. And I think they would be the first ones to say, no, we want this information, we expect to get it from the government, and if we don't, then we will sue. And that does happen. Again, this is something I feel strongly about. This is not the midnight hook coming down and a person being taken off the streets, never to be seen again. That's what happens in Russia or Iran or North Korea or even China. But it doesn't happen here, and it never will. And that's the purpose for it. Thank you very much for that bit of a long explanation on why we do press releases. But because of some of the pushback, I felt it was really important to get this information out. So that concludes this segment of Coffee and Connections with the Chief. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you continue to watch our show. Again, I'm Chief Dean Rondeau with the Wolfeboro Police Department, and my captain, Captain Mark Livy, the trusty executive officer for the Wolfeboro Police Department, and we're signing off and wishing you a happy and joyful March, a happy spring, and please get out there and vote on 12 March. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Hi, how you doing? This is Chief Dean Rondeau. Welcome back to another segment of Coffee and Connections with the Chief, and I'm joined by my friend, Matthew Sullivan. Matthew is our esteemed town planner, and folks, don't let the youthful appearance fool you. He is a dynamite professional, and he is somebody I really enjoy working with. Matthew is a very bright and intuitive young man who's doing one heck of a great job as our town planner and asking all the right questions. And he really does return a very nice work product. And it's a pleasure to work with you, Matt. And so thank you for being my guest on Coffee and Connections with the Chief.
Well, thank you for having me, Chief. I appreciate it. And for those of you out there that haven't heard already, I actually have my own Coffee and Connections, so I'll have to get you on that at some point here. But it's nice to have a change of. Yeah, good. Well, it's good to have a change of venue to be down here at Downtown Grill. It's been great to work with the Chief over the last couple of years, particularly this year. Through the warrant article process, the budget process has been really a great partnership, and one that I think we'll continue to expand upon. One thing in particular that we've been working on, and I've actually shared via my own Coffee and Connections, is the public safety building project. We are starting to make some headway on that. It's obviously a massive project in scope. Sort of started doing some preliminary work, but we're actually going to be continuing that work hopefully in 2019. We've requested some money in the budget, so you'll see those as part of your warrant article process this year. What we're really going to be working on is now we have a pretty good understanding of our space needs for the police department and the fire department as well. We're now going to be working with both the police department and the fire department to determine whether some other sites in town might be good fits for our needs. We're also looking at whether or not we have one facility or two facilities, and I think that's going to be a really important decision that we need to make over the next period of a year. But I think that we really want to stay connected to you, the voters, and folks that might just be interested in that process. We're going to be making some huge decisions, and obviously that project is many years out, but 5 years goes quickly, as I think everybody knows. And in this case, we're only talking about 3 years, so it's going to be here before we know it. Chief, I don't know if you want to maybe share a little bit about how your needs are changing, how the space needs study that was done kind of reflect those changes in needs. Obviously, the facility you've been in for quite a while now is constrained in a lot of ways. You can't do a lot of things that you're trying to do there. So maybe if you could talk about, what does the space needs study tell you about what your future needs might look like?
Hey, that's a fantastic question. Thank you very much. And so you can easily see why I enjoy working with Matthew. He's definitely a very deep thinker. So the long and short of it is the public safety building we're in right now was finally completed in about 1970. So it's quite old, and it's definitely showing its age. It was a great building when it was constructed. It served the purpose for which it was intended. I certainly think we got our tax money out of that building without doubt. And there may be some usefulness in certain aspects of that building where we may be able to get some cost savings. But there's a lot of things that we can't do. It constrains us. So on the, not that I'm qualified to talk about the fire department, but I think if you talk to Chief Pinio or Deputy Chief Tom Zotti or any of the fire lieutenants, they'll tell you that they're constrained by the apparatus that they can put inside. And I know that because I've been in a lot of these meetings where we've talked a lot about what the constraints of the building are. It certainly constrains me as to what I can and can't do in that police department. It's difficult, for example, to bring in arrested subjects into that building just because the safety requirements aren't there that I need to ensure not just the prisoner safety, but the safety of the police officers and the general public. So that's first and foremost. We're out of space. We're out of workspace. There are certain aspects of evidence storage and equipment storage and personal property storage that don't meet the federal requirements. Our holding cells don't meet federal requirements. So the list is long, and it just the building essentially has outlived its usefulness. So that's number one. Number two, I know there's been some talk because it's come out in some of these public meetings about what when the initial study was done, and just please understand, folks, that initial study was to get us into the ballpark. That final number, I don't believe, is going to be nearly as high as what has been initially suggested. So with that being said, we are looking at ways of saving money and cost savings, and as Matthew had pointed out, are we going to do two separate buildings, use an existing building and put the police department in one and the fire department in another, what have you. All of those things are being looked at, and much like the budget process, this whole process will go through various stages where various town committees and groups of elected officials and appointed officials are looking at all of the options, and that's something I really want to get out there. You've got a lot of different eyes and a lot of very bright people. We have some of the brightest people in town that serve on these committees, and I'm always impressed with how deeply they think and how committed they are to public safety with the best interest of the taxpayers in mind. So much like the budget, there are no sacred cows, right? We're looking at all options, and we're looking at best use of available town space, best use of existing buildings. Do we combine, keep police and fire combined? Do we get any cost savings there? And if so, what are they and how much is it? And we're looking at all of that. So I think that the process is really good. And just so you folks know, a year ago we started this process. We formed a committee. It had elected officials. It had town appointed officials to it. And we began to look at the whole public safety building with the architects that were chosen through a vetting process, and it was a very detailed and time-consuming process. And I think the needs assessment is spot on. Now, could there be some changes to that? Sure. Could we maybe do some deeper diving and deeper thinking? I think all that's going to happen. And will that number shift a little left or right? Yeah, probably will. Probably more to the left than to the right, and it will come down. But it will come down a whole lot. Probably not. So I think we're in on our space needs. I think we're in the inner field, and I think we've got it narrowed down now. It's really trying to figure out what is the best fit for both the police department and the fire department, and what is in the best interest of the town's taxpayers. And I will tell you right now that we have a lot of very good elected officials that is first and foremost on their mind. What is in the best interest of the town, the town's taxpayers, and our citizenry. And I couldn't support that more, and I know Matthew feels the same way. This is very, very important.
Yeah, if I could just add one thing. I mean, I think one of the critical things to understand, from your perspective and from a planning perspective is, a lot of folks, as we sit here during the winter, our population is significantly smaller than it is during the summer. And I think one of the big things to understand when we're planning a facility like this and looking at those space needs, we need to really plan as a community for our peak times. So the same thing that goes for our roads getting into town, we need to plan for our peak demand. We need to plan for our police station and our fire department to be prepared for that. And that goes for the dispatch center as well. So, in Wolfeboro, that peak of potentially 30,000 people being in the community, that's really what we're looking at. So one of the things that we're going to be doing over the coming months as a group is actually going out to different communities, looking at facilities that have been built recently or at least are similar in size and demand to what Wolfeboro is looking at. I think that will really give us a good perspective on how our space needs might be able to be modified moving forward. But I think this work that we've done over the last year is really a critical piece of foundation work for us moving forward. I think that's only, that's one project that we're working on together. I think there are a lot of other things that the police department, the planning department, and other town departments are going to be partnering on moving forward. It's been really a great relationship we have with the police department, and we're looking forward to hopefully producing great results for you, the taxpayers. If you have any questions for me specifically, best way to reach me is 603-569-5970. You can also reach me at planningdirector@wolfeboronh.us. Again, there are some projects that we're definitely involved with together, but if you have any planning specific questions, please feel free to reach out to me.
Hey, Matthew, thank you so much for doing that and for saying that. And that's a really important point. I want to emphasize that. And I'm going to put a plug in for the Wolfeboro Police Department and Captain Mark Livy. Like no other time in the police department's history have we been so dialed in and so plugged in to our town and what's going on in it. I have the captain is my representative to the technical review committee and to the planning process. And I've been through many planning meetings and CIP meetings looking at what does the police department look like in 5 years, what does it look like in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, where do I see the needs, the growth, what do I see as the crime threat or threats out there, what is the big challenges. And when we were doing and planning the public safety building, that was one of the things that we looked at. What do we think? What is our best guess? Trying to be somewhat prophetic. Where do we think our needs are trying to look into that crystal ball and look 5 years, 10 years, 15, 25, 30 years out. And we did look at 50 years out. And so we really did some deep thinking on this, and I'm really proud about the process. But more importantly, I'm proud about our partnership with the town, our partnership with the town planning board and the planning director, and we have dialed directly into the town like no other time. And a lot of that goes without the citizens knowing that, right? This is something that we do a lot of, and people think, well, we're just out there writing tickets. No, we're dialed into a lot of these town committees and attending a lot of these meetings because we're trying to assess what our needs are, and that's going to obviously impact on our budget. So this is the reason we do it, and although it is transparent to everybody else, there's a lot of hard work that goes into this, and thank you for saying that, Matthew. Thank you very much for being my guest on Coffee and Connections with the Chief. And again, I'm with our esteemed town planner, Matthew Sullivan's doing a dynamite job. Doing a fantastic job out there, and we really appreciate it. So thank you very much for watching Coffee and Connections with the Chief. And again, I'm Chief Dean Rondeau, and have a safe and wonderful March. Thank you. Hi, this is Chief Dean Rondeau, and welcome back for your safety tip of the month. And you're listening to Coffee and Connections with the Chief. So this month I got 2 safety tips for you, right? We're into the month of March. Spring is on the way. Woohoo! We're all happy for that. So the first is, listen, if you got bob houses or equipment out on the lake, you got to get it in, folks. You got to get it in. That lake is thawing out quick. And you don't want to get fined by Fish and Game or Marine Patrol for having equipment out on the ice that now is going to end up in the lake. So get that stuff out. Be careful. The ice is getting thin. So be careful where you're going. And there's a lot of bubblers out there. Sometimes you can't see them under the snow. And that ice is very thin. And you don't want to be falling in that water because it's awfully cold. And it can be quite paralyzing at this time of year. So please be safe out there. If you're on the ice, if you do have equipment, you need to get it off. You're running out of time. The second issue that I'd like to talk about is as we get into the middle of March, we're getting close to St. Patty's Day, and there's going to be a lot of celebrating as the temperatures begin to warm up, and everybody is looking to welcome spring. Be careful of the DWIs and the drinking and driving out there. You need to keep your drinking in check if you're going to go out. Have a sober driver, have a plan, take a cab or a taxi, and just be safe out there, folks. Remember that we do have federal grants out there. There is DWI interdiction patrols out there, and it's not just us. It's every municipality in the state. Does this program. They do these grants, and they're out there. So there's extra patrols, and there will certainly most certainly be extra patrols out over the St. Patty Days weekend. So again, this is Chief Dean Rondeau with the Wolfeboro Police Department. Thank you for tuning in to Coffee and Connections with the Chief. And as always, if you want to be on the show, just get with Tim down at Wolfeboro Community TV or Peter. And sign up, come on down, and we can talk about whatever you like to talk about. Thank you very much for watching Coffee and Connections with the Chief, and as always, be safe out there. Thank you.